Hey, Tyler. Well, just moments ago, Greenpeace filed a lawsuit in U.S. District Court in Washington accusing the Dow Chemical Company, a smaller chemical manufacturer, and several other defendants of engaging in a years-long campaign of corporate espionage against Greenpeace and other players in the environmental movement. In the suit, Greenpeace says several of the private spies were veterans of the U.S. Secret Service and of the CIA.
Well, Greenpeace has filed a federal lawsuit against Dow Chemical and Sasol North America for engaging in corporate espionage. Also named in the suit are the public relations firms Desenhall Resources and Ketchum and the now defunct firm Beckett Brown International. The lawsuit alleges that corporate spies stole thousands of confidential documents from Greenpeace, including campaign plans, employee records, phone records, and donor and media lists.
It's almost unbelievable. James Bond, secret agents, corporate spies, and government agents are alive and well in the Louisiana Heartlands, spying on their worst enemies list of law firms and environmental advocate groups who seek to protect everyday ordinary Americans. You would think that this motley collection of crooks, thieves, con men, and bozos who masquerade as leaders of corporate America would eventually learn the #1 lesson of justice. It isn't the crime that gets you, it's the cover-up. Don't these clowns ever learn? Are the lessons of Watergate and Iran-Contra beyond their comprehension? For decades, southwestern's Louisiana upper estuary has been polluted by untold quantities of toxic chemicals, many associated with the vinyl industry, a mainstay of the local economy. Louisiana and Texas form the core of the U.S. vinyl industry, producing 94% of the nation's ethylene dichloride. And on May 31st, 1994, a barge was unloading ethylene dichloride, or EDC, at the Conoco refinery on the Calcasieu River when workers detected a leak from an old underground pipeline built way back in the 1940s. It later was determined that the pipeline, which carried EDC from the docks to the Condia Vista chemical plant 4 miles away, had been leaking for 8 months. And by the time the leak was stopped, millions of pounds of EDC had escaped, anywhere from 19 million to 47 million pounds of EDC, which resulted in one of Southwest Louisiana's worst environmental disasters. It was one of the biggest liquid chemical spills in the country's history and another setback for an already weakened ecosystem. Facing lawsuits and activist outcries following this massive chemical spill, Condia Vista, now called Sasol North America, called in a corporate spy firm called Beckett Brown International to spy on the environmental advocates like Greenpeace and Clean, as well as the lead Louisiana law firm Cox, Philo, Camel, and Wilson, who were representing some of the victims of this horrific spill. Now, over a decade later, Sasol North America and their co-conspirators, their executives, and their dirty ops spies are now in the crosshairs of Louisiana lawyer Tom Philo, partner at Cox, Philo, Camel, and Wilson law firm, because both he and his firm are the victims of this massive illegal corporate spy operation. Turns out that Beckett Brown and their dirty ops spies, some of whom are former agents for the Secret Service, the CIA, and the National Security Agency, stole boatloads of letters, emails, and handwritten notes from Tom Philo's law firm. Today, the Insider Exclusive will reveal for the first time ever this tale of corporate intrigue fit for Hollywood and how this corporate dirty ops scheme was conducted, who was involved, and how the spy operation hired by Condia Vista stole over 5,000 documents from Tom Philo's law firm containing data, trade secrets, proprietary information from individuals, companies, and organizations around the country. Among the files recovered was the confidential client information from Philo's cases involving Condia Vista litigation, health evaluations of Philo's clients, and the tax returns of attorneys at the firm, plus detailed phone tapping and other activities. Tom Philo and former Louisiana State Senator Jim Cox will discuss in detail how they got tipped off and why their law firm is now vigorously pursuing justice against these underhanded corporate and individual transgressors. By filing a RICO lawsuit against Sasol North America and the participants in the spy operation, laying out some of the operative facts surrounding this spy operation dubbed the Lake Charles Project. This suit will throw open a window on a murky and often unseemly world of corporate espionage and dirty tricks. The message of this lawsuit is straightforward and simple. When companies engage in espionage, they will be discovered and exposed. Their unacceptable and underhanded tactics interfered with valuable work Tom Philo and his law firm were undertaking to protect public health and expose environmental crimes. And these companies will soon learn that it isn't the crime that gets you, it's the cover-up. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from Lake Charles, Louisiana, at the law firm of Cox, Philo, Camel, and Wilson. It is my great pleasure to introduce Tom Philo and Senator Jim Cox to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your firm.
We have a firm of about 7 attorneys here in Lake Charles. We're a plaintiff firm. We do personal injury work. We do some environmental work. We do class action work, but basically it's all plaintiff type work, and representing the people.
The little guy.
Representing the little guy.
The small people, as British Petroleum calls them, right?
The small people against the big people. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Now, Senator, you actually founded this firm, didn't you?
Well, yeah, my brother and I, he just died last month. Mm-hmm. And we founded it strictly on the premise that we could help people in their fights against major corporations, which is sometimes difficult because you don't always have the funding or the resources.
Right.
And we found out pretty quickly that funding and resources weren't the only way to beat them. Mm-hmm. And we beat them like a drum.
Before we get into the case that we're going to discuss today, I want to give a little background from you, Tom, about what led up to this. In 1994, there was a spill, a chemical spill, right here in Lake Charles. What happened?
Well, what happened was there was a chemical spill of EDC, ethylene dichloride, that occurred at the Conoco dock facility. It turns out that we learned that that thing had been spilling, this pipeline had been spilling and leaking for about 8 months. They discovered it about 8 months later, and that led to this massive cleanup effort right down by the river here in Lake Charles, where they had thousands of people working on the cleanup, and lots of folks got injured as a result of the cleanup.
Now, you represented, what, eventually about 60 people, didn't you?
I did. I initially represented 2. Mm-hmm. And we tried one case. We got a judgment, a punitive damage award. Right. Because of that, I got a number of other clients. I had about 60 at the time, and then about a year later, we ended up doing a settlement with Conoco and Vista to settle the cases I had. And then after that, a lot more folks came forward, and they had a lot of litigation going on for years to come.
Now, you eventually ended up getting a settlement for your clients, correct?
We did. We got a settlement for the 60 clients that we had after we had gotten a jury verdict against Vista with a punitive damage award that was on appeal.
Yeah, now we get into today's story. You thought it was all done and over. And by the way, I think you settled your cases where, in around 2000, 1998 to 2000, somewhere in that neighborhood?
It was in the late it was, I think, 99 maybe, 98, 99 is when we finally did the settlement of the 60 cases that we had, and we were done. Other attorneys were getting involved, but we were out of it.
Now you get a phone call, out of the blue, 2006, from?
From a fellow by the name of John Dodd.
And who is John Dodd?
John Dodd, who I met shortly thereafter, was a fellow who was an investor in a investigation firm out of Baltimore, Maryland, by the name of Beckett Brown. And John Dodd was an investor who had ended up filing his own suit against the company because he felt like they weren't being forthright with him about the operation of the company. Right. He was losing money on his investment. He filed a lawsuit, and he said, look, in connection with the suit I filed, I've got thousands of documents that appear to have been stolen from your law firm.
How did he get those documents? I was just curious about that.
Best I understand is that there was a situation shortly after he filed suit. He went up to the office at night and found his partners or his ex-partners shredding documents.
Right.
Ran to the court, got his lawyer to go to the court. The court issued a restraining order, and they were able to seize all of the documents for use in his case.
Yeah.
And basically, those documents now, at least back in 2006 when I got the call, were stored in his father's garage in St. Michael on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake.
So you've got 5,000 documents that he has in his office, has at his house or garage or whatever.
His father's garage,
Yeah.
right.
And now, what is your immediate thinking when?
Well, immediately when he asked me, when he says, I think I've got something that you might want to take a look at, I've got 5,000 documents that it looks like all came from your law firm. And I said, what was the time frame? And he said, they all appear to be from 1998, 1999. And I said, let me guess, they deal with ethylene dichloride, Conoco and Vista. And he said, bingo, that's right. And so me and a good friend of mine from Lafayette, an attorney here in Louisiana, flew up to Maryland, met with John Dodd, and spent 2 days going through the documents and looking to see what they had.
Where are those documents today, by the way?
I believe those documents are still in the possession of Mr. Dodd.
Okay. Now, then you have filed a RICO suit against the former executives of BVI, as well as Sasol, North America?
Yeah, Sasol North America is the successor company to Vista. Back when this happened back in the early 90s, Condea Vista was the name of the company that operated the plant that had the leak.
Yeah.
Since that time, Sasol, another company, has bought out Vista. But Sasol is one of the defendants in the case. We've also named all of the individuals that were involved in the what we call spy operation.
Yeah.
And basically we had some folks that were working at Vista at the time, including a fellow by the name of Pete Markey, who apparently was paying the tab and authorizing the payment for all of the activity that was happening with the surveillance of our firm. And then the in-house counsel for Vista is also named in the lawsuit, as well as some other operatives that were working with this investigation firm.
Right. What, now, having founded this firm,
Yes.
having watched all this stuff,
Yes.
Having been in politics
Yes.
and being a state senator, I mean, what was your initial impression when you heard this information?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I was shocked.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a lawyer, and I'm a politician. I couldn't imagine that people would do this kind of thing. You know, I'm also an American.
Yeah.
And, you know, they invaded our firm. They invaded
They broke
our
into
privacy.
your office.
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah.
Our lock was broken. We know they were in there. We've got documents that could not have been obtained except either through forced entry or, as turned out to be the case, a number of them were probably stolen by operatives that belonged to environmental organizations that we were helping.
Right.
And he had access to our office.
Wow. You know, for our audience, so they can understand better what a racketeering lawsuit is, because this is filed under not federal law guidelines, but Louisiana statutes, right?
Right. Louisiana has a Racketeering Act.
What is the definition of racketeering in this per statutes in Louisiana?
Well, in Louisiana, the Racketeering Act says that racketeering activity shall mean the violation of any of the following statutes, and they've got a number of criminal statutes, one of which is theft, one of which is burglary, and then they've got just a number of others. In Louisiana, if you are guilty of theft, if you have committed a theft, taken something of value from another without their consent, then you are by definition a racketeer. The Racketeering Act allows those who are the victims of racketeering activity to file suit and to, number one, gain information about what happened at their expense.
Yeah.
In other words, it's an unusual statute in that it allows a plaintiff to recover all cost of investigation and litigation. So you can basically investigate the person
on their dime
who is investigating you, and you can go in there and say, I want to find out everything that happened. And by the way, at the end of the day, when we find out, you're getting a bill for the tab and you're paying it.
Yeah, and is there a provision for treble damages on this too?
There's also a provision for treble damages as well as for attorney's fees, which means that you can hire a law firm or a lawyer to go and do this without having to actually come out of pocket and pay yourself.
So theoretically, the settlements you had before, because they were made under the assumption that the other side didn't have all the proprietary information that you were using, theoretically those settlements could be trebled, couldn't they?
If a court were to decide that that's what the damage was, yes, there's no question that the Act does allow for treble damages. And what's really important is that at the time that they were actually getting all this information from our firm, and it was being sent to Vista, we still had lawsuits going on against Vista, and we hadn't settled yet. The first case was up on appeal. The other 50 some odd cases were going through the litigation, and we were getting a lot of our work product was being taken from us and turned over to Vista. And so that's right. They were surveilling us in the months leading up to the settlement. So you know, what they knew about what we were thinking and about what our clients might be willing to do with the settlement negotiation is far more information than one would typically have when they're negotiating with the other side.
This is almost like a Hollywood movie, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like Spygate to me.
We have with us a former environmentalist, still environmentalist, Beth Zilbert, who is going to come on the show right now because not only was your law firm wiretapped and spied on, but also her organization, which was clean. And so we're going to bring her on right now to tell her experiences too. It's my great pleasure to introduce Beth Zilbert to the show. Welcome to the show, Beth.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You had your offices when you're a lawyer right now.
I am.
But you were involved with CLEAN, that was your organization, something similar to Greenpeace in a way, same kind of principles, and you had your office right here at the law firm, correct?
Actually, my office was in my home.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had some files here, your meetings for the meeting.
We did. We conducted, the law firm was generous and allowed us, because I didn't have a boardroom in my home, so we were able to have some of our meetings here.
When you found out there was a break-in and documents had been stolen, what was your immediate reaction?
Disbelief. Why would a company as big as Conde Vista stoop to such a low tactic, if indeed that's who had done that? Why would anybody do that? All we were seeking was the truth and to try to educate the public. Why would you try to stop that? And
then you're now a lawyer, as I mentioned earlier, but you filed your own lawsuit, didn't you?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I will keep doing this kind of work. I will keep doing the community organizing and the activist education work. That's just who I am and what I do. But if people learn about what they did to us as private citizens, and it maybe scares them or puts a little damper on, or a chilling effect on their ability to protect themselves and protect their community, then that's the reason why I filed this lawsuit, to make sure that other folks know that, you know, we're not going to let them get away with this, certainly not without a fight. Yeah. How did it affect your organization that you know of, their spying and retrieval of your documents that belong to your organization? Well, the organization eventually crumbled. I lost my job. Yeah. It created discord amongst the activists. The goals of the organization were certainly interfered with, postponed, at best, at worst. Perhaps some of the activities and goals of these citizen nonprofit, volunteer groups were actually derailed. Right. If you had an opportunity to have a moment with Sasol right now, and let's say I'm the CEO of Sasol, what would you say to me? Tell the truth, follow the law. Yeah. Stop hurting the community. What kind of penalty would you want to levy against them if you were the judge? Well, I certainly think it should be a penalty that hurts them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's literally just like swatting a fly.
I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's amazing to me that who would think, you know, that a big corporation would hire a private security firm to break into your office, steal things to find out what you're doing. It almost reminds me of Watergate, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah,
No.
exactly. We were very surprised to find out what they had done and the money they spent. We looked through their records, and best we can tell, they were spending six figures with this firm to, you know, spy on our firm for a period of at least 3 months straight and retrieving all kind of documents they had no right to get.
What should this episode, you know, this incident teach every law firm in terms of industrial espionage? What do you think it should teach them?
I think it should teach law firms and citizens to continue to stand up and fight against corporate America, where corporate America is crooked,
Yeah.
and where they're taking away the rights of citizens to clean air, clean water, and not to worry about consequences, but to be on your guard, because they'll use, now we know, any dirty trick necessary in order to defeat citizens trying to just be Americans.
I want to thank both of you for being on the program today, because this whole episode was so amazing. That's why we had to come down here and shoot this show. Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guests and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.